this computer. All right. Okay. So, so let's start with questions. Do we have any questions on, good morning, Carmen. Do we have any questions on Lab 5? So it's due tonight at 11:59. And again, if you want to do those. So give me a little bit of feedback. All of this chemistry and stuff we've been talking about, these energy systems and things. Are you having some grasp of this? Do you feel like, you know, you're on the fence? I sort of get it, but then I kind of fall off. I don't know if you've ever had that where you sort of like, you feel like you have a concept and I've got a firm grasp it, and then I realize, yeah, not so much. Okay, maybe not. So give us some feedback. How do you all feel about that? So I may have to call him. Go ahead, Anton. Thank you for, and by the way, let's give Anton a round of applause for always starting us out. I do appreciate that. It's a way to take that leap, Anton. There you go.
For me personally, like I'm not really that kind of a big guy in chemistry, so like all the chemical bonds and whatever was going on is not like so easy for me. But like in general, I feel like I have a understanding of what the energy systems do, but like everything that goes like deeper into chemistry is not that.
Yeah. And that's pretty typical. So, you know, the textbook goes through in a lot of detail. I mean, they get down into the brass tacks about, you know, how we function on a biochemical level. You could study this your whole life, and people do. You could study this your whole life and never feel like you really have it all because we keep learning more. You know, we just keep learning more. Did anybody read the article I sent you about Dr. Brooks on lactic acid? Excellent answer. Not yet. Yeah, but I intend to. Right. So basically, the moral of the story with lactic acid is, and the way you can remember this, and this is why I love Dr. Brooks as an instructor. You know, going to his class was like going to a soap opera, right? So every day it was the saga of something or other, and you know, they were like characters in a play. Anyway, lactic acid. It turns out that lactic acid, we thought that it was this poison, right? Heavy exercise produced it, made you tired, made you cramp up, made you nauseated in some cases. You know, made you your performance decline. It got blamed for everything. Lactic acid, terrible. The truth of the matter is that lactic acid is a normal process that is produced through glycolysis, right? That intermediate energy step, and that lactic acid is in fact a substrate for energy for the heart, for the brain, for other organs. It serves a really vital a role in our metabolism. And as it turns out, you know, remember how we said energy is neither created nor destroyed? Lactic acid is recycled and utilized like other ones. So the way I always think about it, and as in the article we sent you, it said that lactic acid is like the Visa card. It's accepted everywhere. Right, so our cells accept lactic acid and they utilize it. You'll notice also it says Cal on it. Go Bears, right? So he was a professor at Cal, and that's where he did all his research. So it's my Cal Visa card, which always reminds me of lactic acid. So if you want to think about lactic acid, most of you probably think, you know, Visa cards are pretty good, right? Until you have to pay the bill. But nonetheless, Visa cards are pretty good. And you know, lactic acid, as I said, it's actually it's a vital part of our metabolism. So, you know, we don't need to fear it. We don't need to do anything other than just recognize that it's a part of the metabolic process that we all go through. So no more blaming lactic acid. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
And one of the main fuels that the brain uses is lactic acid. So it gets recycled and it's very well accepted by the brain. So there goes to show us that why when we do cardiovascular endurance training or cardiovascular training prior to a study session, prior to an exam, prior to anything that we're going to be learning, you know, your body is able, or your brain is able to retain that information much better, and it's better able to react to what you're actually thinking, because it has enough fuel to be able to wake up those areas of the brain that are used in education, or when you're learning, or when you're trying, or when you're performing in an event such as a test or a quiz. So my recommendation, based on this information that we have, is to try to get some cardio, try to get a workout in prior to, or the morning of your test. Okay, best decision I ever made when I was in undergrad. Dr. Stephen Lloyd down at Cal State Northridge, he was the one that introduced us to this, and I was like, what? No way. And my test scores are personally definitely increased, or maybe because I was doing more studying. but
Well, you
it
had more
definitely-
energy to do study.
and I had definitely more energy to do studying. So there's my little 2 cents on that, for going forward, especially when you guys are going to be doing testing in an environment, a controlled environment such as the CPT exam. Definitely a good strategy to ace that test on the first try.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I haven't seen a lot of data looking at lactic acid in particular with academic success, but I imagine that research is probably coming. But based on that information, I'm actually starting a research project here at Santa Barbara City College. I'm working on a design right now, is to embed exercise into math class, English language learning skills, and not a half hour, but just 7 minutes. Anybody ever heard of the 7-minute workout? Anyway, there's a thing that's called the American College of Sports Medicine 7-minute workout. And it basically gets your heart rate up for 7 minutes. Pretty easy exercises, jumping jacks, high knees, those kinds of things. So stuff that can be easily done. Don't need equipment, don't need there. The goal is to get your heart rate up. The physiological changes that we see in people that do this routinely are very good. So we start to see the same aerobic benefits that we do for people that exercise for longer periods of time at lower heart rates, right? So there's that relationship between intensity and time. So my goal is, since the research shows that if the IC says engage in aerobic activity prior to doing a cognitive task, you do better on the cognitive task. My thought is, what if we embed exercise into classrooms? Does that improve learning? Does it improve memory? Does it improve adherence? Does it improve, attendance, perseverance, all these other kinds of things? So I'm looking to see how that goes. So research is how we find these answers out. We ask questions, figure out how to answer them, design a program, do it, and see what you get. Sometimes you get nothing. I mean, sometimes you literally do all this stuff and there makes no difference. So, but you still learn something. So what seems like, a failure is, no, we learned that really wasn't a very strategic approach. That's good information. Okay. So we're going to move on here to looking at nutrition and supplementation. We're not going to spend lots of time. We're just going to spend today on this, maybe a little bit on Tuesday, but not lots of time. Your textbook, the chapter in your textbook goes through a lot of detail. Fats, carbohydrates, proteins, and they get into all the biochemistry. From my point of view, this is not necessary for you to know this. It's good information if you want to dive further into it. But the reason that we're not going to spend lots of time on it is because what is the role of the certified personal trainer as it relates to nutrition and supplementation? And because your role is limited, in my mind, diving into all that is good information, but not necessary for the job that you're doing. I would highly recommend take a class in nutrition. You can either take Biomed 128 here on campus, which is human nutrition, or you can also take sports nutrition, which is through the physical education department. But I'd really recommend taking a human nutrition class because your nutritional needs change throughout your life cycle. right? You can imagine an infant has very different nutritional needs than like an 80-year-old, right? A woman that is pregnant has very different nutritional needs than an 18-year-old male, right? So your nutritional needs are dependent on where you are in your life cycle, and then also allergic reactions that you might have, what your physical activity is, et cetera, et cetera. So we're going to try to focus today on just what's the nitty gritty. What do you really sort of need to know based on what our experience has been in personal training? What are the questions that clients really ask you, right? And how would you respond to that? Okay, so I just want to alert you to this. So you guys have probably all heard of registered dietitians, right? An RD. So a registered dietitian is the person who can legally do nutritional therapy. So this is a nationally recognized and credentialed in nutrition by the Commission on Dietetic Registration. The scope of practice ranges from clinical nutrition to community food service nutrition education. Some RDs are board certified in sports dietetics. The person I read all the time if I have a question about sports information is Nancy Clark. She's fantastic. She's written the book on, nutrition for athletes. She's considered sort of the real deal on there. She lectures all over the country. Here, I'll pull her up here. RD, Nancy Clark, RD. So this is her website, Nancy Clark, sports nutritionist. My guess is that Wheaties is paying for some of this. Anyway, so she's really good. And so what I like about her is that, first of all, she's a registered dietitian, so she understands all the biochemistry, but she's also somebody that is steeped in the research. And so she stays very, very current on the research. And then she's really all about practical application. So get out of the lab. What do we really do in the real world? And I think she's very, very good. She's written several books. You can get some information, hands out, and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, I'm a big believer in her. So that's what a registered dietitian does, is that although nationally recognized, some states might still require RDs to obtain licensure to practice independently. The state of California has less regulation on this than other states. So just know that other states are definitely there. So there's also a certified nutritionist, right? And this is typically, again, because it's certification, big difference here between registered and certified. This is licensing. So this is all about where you have to actually take a state or national exam to earn that title. Certifications are bought. Does that make sense? Right? So if you want to become a certified personal trainer, you're taking an exam that you pay for that says, if you can pass this exam, you can be a personal trainer. But there's no national licensing for that. I'm hoping that we get to that because it would really improve the professionalism of the discipline. There's also the certified in sports nutrition by the International Society of Sports Nutrition, right? Certified nutritional specialist, right? So there's lots of certification, but there's only one licensing, okay? There are many people I know who are registered dietitians and certified personal trainers. And so they've combined that level of education. So to get your RD, you basically have to have a bachelor's degree in nutrition, or some require masters, and then you have to have clinical hours under a registered dietitian. So you have to do an internship before you can even sit for the exam or take the exam. Make sense? So their level of professionalism is quite high. And it makes sense. You're putting chemicals into somebody's body because that's all food is, right? Food is chemistry, right? Any of you have any food allergies, right? Or foods that maybe don't sit well with you, right? So you might not be allergic to something, but maybe you notice that when you eat such and such, you know, and people have food allergies oftentimes that they acquire over time, right? So, you know, just know that it does change over time. So that's basically what happens with that. So let's take a look then at what the scope of practice is. Okay. So we're going to do a little popcorn reading here. You guys know what popcorn reading is? Okay. Popcorn reading is, we'll start over here with Javier. He's going to read the first bullet point, and then Anton's going to read the second bullet point, and then Adrian's going to read the third one, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, right? If it's too far away, it's a little bit too small to read. Okay, thank you for saying that. Okay, is that a little bit better? Okay, much better on there, but good idea, I like that. Now see, that's resourcefulness. Perfect. Okay, all right, Anton, start us out here. So this is under what you can do, or sorry, Javier, this is what you can do. Okay, go ahead.
So provide nutritional guidance for a healthy population.
Okay, so guidance, right? So you can give them some information. Yep, okay, that's right. That's a good thing, right? So you can spread your knowledge around. Perfect. Go ahead, Anton.
Evaluate the client's current eating habits and provide general guidance.
Right? So you can evaluate their eating habits. How would you evaluate a person's current eating habits? Any thoughts on how you might do that?
Go to your house or something and kind of see what they're eating,
Okay, so I could hover over them and, you know, see what
or
they're
like
eating.
just like look through and see what
Rearrange their diet.
What's that?
Rearrange their diet.
Well, how would you rearrange it if you don't know what they're eating?
a log.
Yeah, have them write a log or a journal. Fantastic, logs or journals. So we call those food records. Two ways you can do them. You can sit your client down and say, okay, Max, tell me what you ate yesterday. And he's going to write down everything he ate yesterday. How accurate do you think those things are? Right. Can you remember yesterday?
No.
Yeah. I mean, most of us are like, you know, God, what did I have for breakfast this morning? Wait, did I eat? Yeah. So, right. So oftentimes our memory is not so great. Right. The other way to do it, which is how most research projects do it, is you have somebody record what they're eating throughout the day. Old school used to be, you give them a pamphlet, they write it all down. When it comes back, I mean, there's tomato sauce on it, there's butter on it, I mean, there's crap all over it, right? Because it was kind of like right there when they ate, right? That's when you know they really were doing it, right? Then there's the other ones where, okay, you know, I'm faking this. Nowadays, we do it with smartphones, right? So what is it? My MyFitnessPal, you know, you can do different ones where you're recording that. By the way, do any of you use any of these dietary things to record?
Yeah.
your food? Okay, did anybody see what I posted about extra credit?
No.
Yeah. Thank you. All right. Here's nutritional research in action. If you engage in this, I'll give you some extra credit, but also this is a chance for you to maybe earn a little bit of dollars. So if any of you want to engage in this, you are welcome to do it. So I posted this extra credit opportunity and an opportunity to engage in medical research. So I do a lot of work with Sansum Diabetes Research Institute. So we developed a partnership, and I always like to bring their research programs to Santa Barbara City College because it's an opportunity for you as students to participate, especially if you're going to go into these kind of careers. How do we generate information that we can then take to the public and say, hey, this is a really great thing for you to do, or definitely don't do that, right? So they have two studies that they're doing. One is how food and exercise impact your blood glucose. And the other study is called Me and Food, and it's understanding more about diet, self-monitoring, and eating behaviors. And here's what they look like. So these are the two research projects. This is the first one. It's a 2-week research program. So anybody can participate who, if you feel comfortable using apps in English on your own smartphone and able to eat provided meals, they're going to give you food. Right? So they're going to give you food. You're going to be involved in some blood glucose studies, which is this little monitor here. So if you want to do this, they're going to consume, you're going to get a breakfast shake, a delivered lunch, and your usual dinner. Maybe I'll sign up. And if you finish the program, they'll give you some financial compensation. I have no idea how much that is. My guess is it would not move you into a new tax bracket. Right? So, but you know, how do you encourage people to participate? So that's one study. The second study is one, this is being done actually at Rice University. The two researchers are at Rice and Texas A&M. And so they've asked us if we want to participate. Got to be 18 years of old, have an active email address. If you use MyFitnessPal or a thing called Lose It to log food, you would have logged food for about a month between these dates, July, blah, 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 right? So if you meet these criteria, you got to fill out a screening thing, takes about 45 to 60 minutes to do here. You're going to get an Amazon gift card for 20 bucks. If you do extra compensation for MyFitnessPal users who consent to download food diaries. So if you want to participate, just contact these folks. The information is there. Feel free. Okay. If you know people who might want to do this, who are friends of yours, totally fine. It's open to anybody. Okay. Open to anybody to do that. Oh.
Yeah, here's a great opportunity, guys, this is a great resume builder. I mean, you go into apply for a new position for a personal training position at, you know, X gym. You know, you're going to be able to put this stuff, if you do participate in something like this, you can put that on your resume. And guess what? That's like music to my ears if I'm a general manager, a fitness manager, right? Because now you understand, you have a different understanding, you know, a more open mind to being able to help my clients, right? And retain those clients and bring more clients in. So that, to me, as a manager, it's like, okay, like this person is dedicated, and it's not just, you know, a 9-to-5 job. It's actually they're pursuing their passion, you know, and when you do that, and for those of you that are going to go into higher levels of education, whether pursue a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, or a PhD, you get your feet wet here, and the people that you're going to meet in these places, you know, we talked about. I remember mentioning creating your network, right? This is where it starts, and it's better to do it now than to wait until I have time or until I'm actually there. You know, why don't you just start building it now? Just similar to what you're doing right now with this class, right? You're building yourself a good foundation to be able to move, you know, through the ranks and generate a good business. And so back to my main point is take advantage of these, because especially if you have the time and you have the passion for what you're doing, this great builder for you guys.
Yeah, and these are opportunities, by the way, while I'm thinking about it, as I said, I do a lot of work with Sansom. This group is here in town, Sansom Diabetes Research Institute. They're located on Bath Street. They are one of the leading research organizations in the world on diabetes, and particularly type 2 diabetes. They are doing amazing research, particularly in the Latino community, looking at, if we look at diabetes across the general population, 1 in 3 adults in the US becomes a type 2 diabetic. 1 in 3, right? That's 30% of the people in this room. 1 in 2 persons in the Latino community, Native American, African American, and particularly Latino population. 1 in 2. Why is it so much higher? They're trying to figure this out. Why is it so much higher? So if you are interested in doing an internship with them or be involved in some of these programs, they are really always looking for folks who are interested in this and also bilingual. So if you're a Spanish speaker, let me know. I'm happy to hook you up with these folks. I've had students over the years do this. And again, talk about a resume builder. Right? That's a big resume builder. So it's a door opener. Okay. So, all right. Let's see here, Adrian, let's see, you got number 3 here. Here we go.
Discuss the roles and importance of protein, carbohydrates, and fat.
Okay. So discuss the roles and importance of protein, carbohydrates, or fat, but it doesn't say, tell them how much to eat of each of these. Right? So you can definitely discuss this based on your knowledge. Let's see here. Go ahead, Kayla.
Explain the importance of fiber and macronutrients.
Okay. Right. So again, same thing. I can explain how these things work or their importance in having a balanced diet, but I can't prescribe these for folks. Let's see. Go ahead, Max.
Discuss the dangers of over-consuming calories, salt, alcohol, and added sugar.
Yeah, and generally don't have a cocktail in your hand when you do that, right? You know, so you want to make sure you don't, not a mixed message, right? Okay, excellent. Go ahead.
Does it offer basic hydration strategies?
We're going to talk a lot about that today with hydration, really huge, big nutrient that you want to make sure people are aware of. Let's see here, Annabelle, go ahead.
Dispel nutrient myths and fallacies.
Okay, so one thing that you're going to see in the popular press are, anybody ever seen anything that says carbohydrates are bad? You should never eat carbohydrates. Right? Low carb diet, right? You start to see these foods that get demonized. Oh, you can never eat these things. And that is not a sound approach. That is not a sound approach. Let's see, go ahead, Alyssa.
Refer to the client's personal healthcare provider when necessary.
Okay, yeah, lots of times, hey, let's get you to an MD on that. And then go ahead, Carmen.
Offer basic nutritional guidelines for anyone who wants to participate in typical athletic pursuits.
Okay, so for persons who are engaged in athletics, their nutritional requirements change. Typically, more carbohydrate. Yeah, typically added carbohydrate gets in there to provide that. And let's see, we'll come back this way. Go ahead, Alyssa.
Offer advice on eating behaviors that are known to reduce the risk of disease or progression.
Right. So you can offer advice on, hey, this is what some of the research says. You might want to consider it. Okay, Annabelle, go ahead.
Offer exercise and physical activity guidelines.
Right. Again, so you can offer guidelines on things again, but these are, you see how the word guideline or general is used as opposed to specific nutrition counseling. Let's see here, Max, go ahead. What's this next one?
Demonstrate healthy portion sizes.
Okay, demonstrate healthy portion sizes. There's a restaurant in town, my friends and I, we refer to it as the trough. Because the portion sizes are ginormous. If you get a, you can get like a half order, it's a pasta place. If you get a full order, that's like 4 meals. It's huge. Place is packed all the time, right? But you get a big bang for your buck, right? So yeah, the portion sizes are ginormous. And, you guys are too young to remember this, but portion sizes, what about French fries now? If you go to a fast food restaurant, what's a typical French fry thing? What's that?
Like half of the plate.
Yeah, it's big, right? Oh, you want to supersize it? Yeah, why not? You only live once, right? So, right, you get the whole big thing. Back in the day, French fries, little white bag, tiny little French fries. That's it. Yeah, there was no super, they weren't these ginormous portions. And oftentimes with students that come to the US from Europe that come here to study, oftentimes I'll say, what do you think about so Anton, what do you think?
I mean, everything is bigger.
Yeah.
You get way more for less.
Yeah. Everything is bigger. And then go to Texas, right? Because Texas, bigger in Texas. When I was a student, we had a road trip. We were in Amarillo, Texas. There's the monument to helium. showstopper, right? Monument to helium. Anyway, so there we are in Amarillo, Texas. We're eating at a truck stop. The truck stop has a thing, all you can eat, 72-ounce steak cooked. Huge. All the fixings, potato, beans, salad, vegetables. It's this huge amount of food. If you can eat it all in under an hour, it's free. Trucks everywhere. The place was packed. We split one of those meals between 4 of us. But you should see the size of the people that were coming in there. It was some big, big, big truckers. Yeah, go ahead.
How much was it if they didn't, eat all of it within an hour?
Oh, you know what? I don't remember what the price was, but it truthfully was pretty cheap. It was pretty cheap. So anyway, unbelievable. So these portion sizes, we're warped. Anybody ever looked at a food label and see what the portion size is? Okay, let's take it. How many of you eat breakfast cereal? Anybody a cereal eater? All right. Javier, what's the portion size on the cereal?
1/3 of a cup, I think.
Yeah, oftentimes it's a half to a third to a quarter cup. What do most of you do? Right? Dump it in a bowl, right? Huge, right? So we're distorted in terms of what we think our portion sizes are. Yes,
I
yes, ma'am.
took the human nutrition class, and we did a worksheet on oatmeal versus cereal.
Yeah.
And if you eat cereal for breakfast, like a normal, just pour yourself a bowl, you're basically eating like 6 cookies.
Yeah.
Like the sugar equivalent is like 6 chips of cookies.
Oh, yeah,
for
yeah.
breakfast. Which after that I stopped eating
Yeah.
cereal. So I was like, oh my god, that's a lot of sugar.
Oh, they're loaded with sugar.
Yeah,
They're
it's
loaded
like
with
with
sugar.
cookies too, like you either eat 2 and try to, like what the label says after eating 2 cookies.
Oh, right, serving size 2, please.
I've already eaten like 8.
Yeah, yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Haagen-Dazs, right? The nice little pint, so convenient. 4 servings. I know no one that eats, what, really? It's 1 serving, maybe 2 on a good day.
Me and my husband will sit there and eat one of those to ourselves.
Look at the,
We'll
look at,
split it, but it's not. I mean,
oh yeah, check it out.
So now, so think about it. You guys are young, you guys are active, you guys are passionate about this stuff. Now think about your clients that don't exercise, that have a tough time with time management, that have a tough time with learning or knowing what the portion sizes are, reading a label. I mean, the amount of times that I encounter folks that where I would ask like, oh, what was the label say, and they had no clue what I was talking about. So you are going to have to be able to, or you are going to be their teachers, and you're going to be guiding them through, hey, listen, like, okay, how do I read this? How do I read, the ingredients in this label? How can I make, better decisions? And so coming back to that, it's helping clients that are having a tough time with managing, their everyday life. And now you have to be conscious about this stuff, conscious about helping them realize that, hey, you might not be able to eat the entire, bottle, but maybe half, for, let's say, for example, Gatorade. Gatorade is, it's great for sports nutrition, not so much for, for the average individual, right? Number of calories, number of sugar, the amount of sugar in those things, and then we talk about type 2 diabetes. Well, I don't drink soda, but because I drink this, and this is better. Is it?
Yeah.
Right? So just understanding those guidelines and then understanding that what it is that they're putting into their bodies, you don't have to tell them like, oh, well, this is this and this is, No, you don't have to, you don't have to, but you can help them. So remember that as you're going through your journey of learning more about nutrition and like Ellen said and Alyssa said, you know, it makes you more aware of everyday of your everyday habits, you know, and how they change throughout your life, for sure. So just be mindful of that as we're talking about this.
So this last one here is help your clients set realistic health and wellness goals, evaluate practice, progress, and revise goals as necessary. Sometimes the goal is to help your client, just establish a consistent pattern of activity. So our goal is going to be to get 150 minutes of movement in per week, right? Great goal. Right? I can measure it, right? I can do all that, right? So especially for somebody that is not a mover, not an exerciser. So just a consistent pattern. To Alyssa and Javier's point, I'm going to eat the cookies, but instead of eating 8, I'm going to eat 4. And then the next week, I'm going to eat just 2. Right? So to me, that's like the Kaizen sort of thing. Some people want to go cold turkey, right? They just cut it all out, and that works great for them. It doesn't work for everybody. And so I sometimes think about myself where I want to get something and I'm like, oh, I really like that. And then I think, Kaizen, I'll have half of it. Or I'll, you know, so in other words, I don't deny myself, but I try to be better about, you know, doing that. And oftentimes when you start to break, you're going to work with clients that food is not nutrition to them. Food is a best friend, comfort, anxiety reducer, boredom reliever. Any of you ever opened up the refrigerator door and just stared in there?
I do that every time I walk into my parents' house. I
Yeah,
literally walk in the front door and I open the fridge. I don't grab anything, but I just open it, see what's in there, and then I close it.
yeah. I mean, so many people, when I usually mention that, the heads, you know, nod because, you know, I don't know what I'm looking for, right? I open it up. Yeah, it's just one of these things where, you know, we have so much emotion tied to food. And so helping clients to be somebody that can, right? I control my food intake. Food doesn't control me. Right? There are people who talk about being able to hear chocolate talking to them from the other room. Right? I'm here. Creamy. Right. So, all right, what can't you do? It's a whole bunch of can'ts also. Like we can't do specific diet and menu plans. Okay, Max, I want you for breakfast to eat these 3 things, and then for lunch, right? We can't do that. I can give him general information about carbohydrates, fats, proteins, those things, but I can't do a specific meal plan. Right? I can't prescribe specific supplements or recommend vitamins and minerals. This is a big one. We sometimes see this in sports nutrition where coaches, I want to get these guys big, we're going to do this. And so here, I'm going to buy a whole big jar of this protein supplement and I'm going to dispense it out. I've seen that happen with coaches, and boy, that is a good way to get yourself fired. Because that is, you cannot do that. Right? So at Division I levels, they have sports nutritionists or registered dietitians that work with athletes. But they don't just randomly hand out stuff. Again, who's the professional that really should be doing this? Prescribing drastic, very low calorie diets. So these are typically diets that are 500 calories a day or less. Yes. Thank you for the eye roll, because that's, you know, you're totally right on. You guys all know Oprah? She and I are just kidding. One of my best friends, though, was on the board of Weight Watchers with her. Has an actual picture in her house of her and Oprah, you know, sort of thing. Anyway, so she has a home in Montecito, right? She's a billionaire, self-made, amazing story. She was on a diet because, you know, she struggled with weight her entire life. She was on a diet, medically supervised, 500 calories a day total diet.
What the-
Yeah, did she lose weight? You bet she did. That's called starvation. She lost weight, hired a chef to then cook for her, owned a restaurant where she could go and eat all the time. Soon as she finishes that, weight comes back on again. Right? Starvation diets promote the loss of muscle. And remember, muscle is what increases your resting metabolic rate. We don't want to lose muscle. Anybody ever heard the story, breakfast cereal Special K? Which, not that Special K, right? So breakfast cereal, Special K, and that breakfast cereal, their motto, perfect. Lose the fat, keep the muscle. Right? Because remember, your arm has weight, right? So we don't want to lose, weight is just irrelevant. We're interested in losing body fat. So starvation is a great way to lose muscle.
And to that point of Oprah Winfrey, think about how many people she follow her on social media,
Oh, yeah.
how many interviews she went on. So your clients are gonna, because I had a client that was following that diet when she got to me. And it was very, very scary. There was one time where she almost passed out during our session. Actually, like, we had to call 911 because, she was shaking, and this is like probably year 2, year 3 of training. So I was just kind of like trying to keep her alive. Little did I know that, she was following this diet. That's when I found out. And it's like, oh, my friend told me about it. And now I'm doing it. And yeah, she lost but from the time I started with her to when she started that diet, she had probably lost about like 4 or 5 pounds. We were losing about a pound a week or so. From the time she started that diet, 2.5 weeks into it, that's when she almost passed out. And she had lost like 8 pounds.
Oh, boy.
So, and it was like, I was like, oh, this is great, Little did I know that she was following that diet, right? And it's just like, what's the Oprah Winfrey diet? And it's like, so imagine how many of those cases, get followed, and people come to you, well, I'm already following my diet. But this is where you could come in and discuss some of that stuff, that why the pros and the cons of following such diets.
So, this next one here is prescribing fasting detoxification, right? So, right, you see all these things, intermittent fasting diets, blah, 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 all this kind of stuff. You can't prescribe that. You can talk to your clients about it, but you can't prescribe it. You should do such and such. You can't prescribe diets that omit or severely restrict certain food groups. Like, okay, you can never eat, what gets restricted from people? Yeah, paleo diet, right? So no starch. Right? No, complex carbohydrates. Advise against recommendations of a healthcare professional. If a doctor says they should do something, a registered dietitian, you can't go, what do they know? Screw it. This is what I think you should do. Right? So you can't do that at all. Provide detailed nutritional plans who participate in athletes' extreme training programs like Ironman, triathletes, ultra marathons. So again, those folks use registered dietitians, as they should. Prescribe dietary plans for those with chronic illness, again, heart disease. Anybody ever heard of the DASH diet? DASH? Dietary anti-hypertension. Anyway, it's a diet that is prescribed to people with high blood pressure. It's a low sodium diet. And so it is a medically supervised diet. Their doctor might prescribe it, but you can't prescribe it, right? So it's a medical diet that is specific to high blood pressure. Provide nutritional therapy, again, to treat chronic illness, counsel people about eating disorder. This is a big one. You will see clients all the time with eating disorders. And definitely a one-size-fits-all approach doesn't work. So one thing about eating disorders, they occur in men and women. We see some eating disorders more commonly in women. We see some eating disorders more commonly in men. Anybody, or in men, anybody ever heard of bigorexia? Right, so bigorexia is muscle kind of a dystrophic thought process about muscles. I'm not big enough. Right, so you see people where they just want to put on massive amounts of muscle. To them, when they see themselves in the mirror, oh, I'm this big around. I got to lift more. I got to train more. And they severe dietary restrictions. It's very serious. But these eating disorders, these are psychologically based. They have a very physical dimension to them, but they are psychologically based. These are folks that need counseling from a professional. Right? And so there are all kinds of clinics, etc. But working with a person that has eating disorders, what's your role as the certified personal trainer? Is to provide support to them, get them to a professional, help them to recognize the situation that they're in and to seek professional counseling. So you can support them, but you can't provide, psychological or nutritional counseling. So this is definitely something to keep an eye on for, especially if you go into coaching as well. We see a lot of athletes with that. All right, so let's give you a quick scenario here. Where did I go here? All right, so here's scenario number one. James is a personal trainer at a local gym. He has a new client, Julie, this morning. She's trying to lose 15 pounds and build some muscle mass over the next 2 months, right? So 8 weeks, 15 pounds. During training, Julie and James start to talk about her diet. She gives James an overview of what she eats daily. James notices that her diet is heavily reliant on fast foods and processed foods. She eats limited amounts of fruits and vegetables. At the end of the session, Julie asks James for some diet advice. James knows that he's not a licensed nutritional professional, but he can give her some general advice. He explains that he cannot give her specific recommendations, but he suggests that she include more vegetables and fruit in her diet in place of the fast foods and processed foods. So what do you guys think? Is that an appropriate response from James? If you think yes, raise your hand. Okay. Anybody think no? Okay. So why do we think it's an appropriate response? Anybody want to tell me, Carmen, you want to give it a shot?
Because he's just suggesting to take more vegetables and fruit. He's not prescribing her a specific diet. He's just giving a suggestion.
Yeah. Anybody have a different thought process than Carmen? Yeah, go ahead, Anton.
I would just add that he also mentioned that he's just giving advice, and not like, or he's just recommending something and not like actually prescribing.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, here's the second one. Ingrid is a certified personal trainer at a local gym. She has a regular client, Bill, who has type 2 diabetes. Bill has been given written permission to start an exercise program and has successfully lost 20 pounds since working with Ingrid. Bill now wants to change his diet and eliminate carbohydrates to accelerate his weight loss. You'll see this in folks where they, oh, carbohydrates bad, right? I read something in my BuzzFeed thing that said carbohydrates are bad. Oh, no carbohydrates, right? Ingrid agrees and suggests that Bill may want to change his eating habits and consume predominantly protein and fat. Okay, what do you think about Ingrid? Is she within her scope of practice or no? Okay, so Alyssa says no. How many of you agree with Alyssa? Okay, all right. What do you think she should have said to him? Okay. Okay. So say it again, Javier.
To give better resource of like where to go and like what the need is.
Okay. Yeah. So Ingrid is not, so you guys are correct, is not within her scope of practice, right? Bill's a type 2 diabetic. That is a serious metabolic disorder. Common, but serious. Should consult a healthcare professional regarding his diet, right? His body's ability to recognize insulin is impaired because of the type 2 diabetes. Carbohydrates, right, produce insulin in our bodies, right? So, this kind of thought process, well, if I just take out carbohydrates, then, everything's good, could put him in serious decline and could induce a diabetic coma. Definitely don't want that. Okay. So, you guys seem to have that concept pretty well on here. So that's one of the reasons we're not going to go through all the, what should you do in terms of, all the carbohydrates, fats, proteins. We're going to focus on a couple of things that are more akin to what we normally see with folks. So let's see here. I pulled it up, Diego, if you want to. Let's see, which one is it here? Let's stop share for a second. Oh, why does it always tell me that? Okay. Okay. So let's see, do we want to do this? Yeah. Okay. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about protein. So Diego, you want to jump in on this?
Absolutely.
Let's see. Let me do this. Good grief.
So what we'll talk about, and this one is just mainly what the recommendations are and not so much specific to like, this is what you need to do. These are all obviously evidence-based approach to all these. These come from the various organizations here on the right-hand side, as you can see. So for sedentary folks, there's a big thing about protein, right? More protein, more protein, more protein, especially when we are lifting, when we are active, right? And a lot of folks tend to, minimize your carbohydrate intake, increase your protein, right? And as you can see here, it's 0.8 grams per kilogram of body fat for sedentary adults, right? So somebody comes in, they've been sedentary for the last 2-3 years, 6 months, whatever it might be, and they're going to start training with you. Now you want to recommend 1.5, grams per kilogram of their body weight to be in protein. They're not really burning a lot of calories there, right? Okay, so their resting metabolic rate is not as high just yet. So we want to keep within the guidelines that are recommended. Strength resistance trained athletes, 1.6 to 1.7 grams. Why? Because those individuals have a lot of muscle tissue, right? And we just talked about that. So their RMR is much higher. And they're constantly targeting those muscle tissues and breaking them down. Endurance athletes get a little bit less. Why? Because they have more carbohydrate to consume, right? So you don't want to put them in a surplus, because an endurance athletes, okay, got to maintain that body weight low, okay, and not put them into surplus. All right, but most exercise in individuals here is 1.4 to 2.0 grams per kilogram of body weight. And there it is. There's the conversion that Ellen mentioned or put up there for 2.2 pounds per kilogram. So you're able to create or convert your pounds into kilograms. Okay. Does everyone want to do that?
Yeah, grab your calculator on your phones.
Yep.
So let's have you calculate your protein needs based on your body weight as just a regular person, not an athlete. Then we'll show you that. Okay. So let me know if you need some help. So you're gonna take your body weight in pounds. You're gonna divide your body weight in pounds by 2.2. So 2.2 pounds is the same as 1 kilo, 1 kilogram. Then you're gonna take your body weight in kilograms, multiply it by 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. And that's going to give you your protein, your minimum protein needs.
Did you get it? Yeah. So times 0.8.
What's that?
Mhm.
Body weight.
You're going to divide your body weight,
That's the
Does that
range.
give us grams?
Yeah, that's a gram.
So
How many
that's
grams?
really 95.
How many grams?
That's your baseline, 0.8.
60 grams?
So you're gonna need 76.
Now you do that by, so you're an exercising individual, right? So this is the minimum you should have.
Okay.
60, that's the minimum.
So like if you have somebody, so this is my minimum, but I do like strength and conditioning for 4 times a
Yep.
week.
Mhm. So then you would fall under most exercising individuals.
Would you, and how would you decide your range?
Intensity, usually it's intensity, frequency. And so if you're doing 3 days a week, you said 4 days a week, well, that's a range 1.4 to 2.0, okay? How many calories you eat per day? So on the next slide, we'll talk about that.
So what kind of numbers did you get for just the minimum?
We'll talk about that.
So let me do this. So Javier, what did you get? What was your minimum calorie?
76.
Right, so when Javier converted his weight, right, so what did we say, 210?
That's
So 210 divided by 2.2 gave him 90, he's about 95 kilograms. 95 times 0.8 gave him, he needs about 76 grams of protein a day, right? Because you always have cells dying off. Those cells have to be rebuilt, replaced. That takes protein. So Carmen, were you able to calculate yours?
Not yet.
Okay,
Annabelle, did you get yours?
Yeah.
54.
okay. So do me a favor, Annabelle, stand up, and Javier, stand up. So would you agree they're different size bodies? Right? Bigger body needs more protein in the absolute sense. Smaller body needs less protein, right? More muscle mass needs more protein, right? He's a bigger person. Make sense? So, just on the basis of that, and by the way, good shirt for today. So just on the basis of that, right? So he's a much bigger person.
Yeah.
So now calculate your protein needs based on one of these formulas. So instead of multiplying by 0.8, you're going to multiply by either 1.6 or 1.7 or 1.2 or 1.4. See what the difference is. See what the difference is. Once you have your body weight in kilograms, then you multiply by whatever grams per kilogram. So one of the things you're going to see is you'll see clients, and I'm sure Diego has much more experience with this, but I'm thinking of the students I've worked with in the fitness center. Massive protein intakes. Right, so they got their shake, they got their thing, or this has 70 grams of protein in one, waste. Right, expensive, way overdone. Right, so way overdone. So you know, while we need more protein, particularly because when you are active, cells break down, they must be replaced. Or if I'm looking at adding adding muscle mass, gotta have two things. The right stimulus to the muscle that tells it to take amino acids and build the muscle, and the proper amount of protein. But we see a lot of folks where they overdo the protein, underdo the carbs, and man, they are fatigued. They got no energy in the tank.
Did you get closer to the
I was
number?
fixing
I
on
do
to
like
how
a
that
1.7.
like I've noticed, like I saw Gatorade with 10 grams of protein.
Yeah,
Like a good
there you
amount with pure eating.
So
with
how would
meals.
you like? So
Uh,
the trial and error?
Yeah, although
On the
tons of
next slide,
sugar.
I have a-
Yeah, exactly.
So,
So the percentages of protein, percentages of carbs, percentages of fat.
so does that make sense?
And that is where, if you fall within that.
But we don't want to exclude
That is where you
carbohydrates,
go
and, you know,
into-
we see it a lot where, you know, again, carbs got this bad rap. unnecessarily. I always think about my sister.
Okay.
No carbs.
So
So she'll drink a can of Coke, but not have a sweet potato. We had to have a conversation. I said, you realize they're the same thing, don't you?
If it's below lower, then you don't want
She
to go
said,
to the
yeah,
higher.
leave me
You
alone.
want to go to the lower. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And
That's
it's
how- yeah,
it's
it's
all
like-
kind of- so like similar to that. You know, bigger body,
Mhm.
more muscle tissue,
Mhm.
male versus female.
Right.
All right, so, what we were talking about over here, so how do you know, how are you, where you should land? Okay, so healthy eating, there's a pie chart right up there. Proteins, 10 to 15% of your total intake, right? Fats, 25 to 30%, carbohydrates, 55 to 65%. Okay, and then we definitely get to go into, you go into more detail or more streamlined or more exact numbers or closer to exact numbers when you do body compositions, right? So what's your fat-free mass? And then how are you able to, you know, if you have a higher fat-free mass, so muscle mass, muscle tissue, then you probably want to go into the higher end of that quantity, right? Versus if you're in the lower end, or, you know, you don't have as much fat-free mass, then you want to go into the lower end. So the 1.4, 1.2, sorry, 1.2, 1.4, in terms of protein intakes. Okay, so Mayo Clinic has a calorie calculator. Now there's an app, right? So we talked about fat-free, MyFitnessPal, right? And so MyFitnessPal has definitely from the moment it was born to now they have like exercise physiologists, nutritionists, medical doctors. There's a bunch of people behind that app. Okay, why? Because there's so many people that use it. Okay, so it does give you pretty, you know, close to accurate numbers. So that's why it is recommended. You know, when somebody, because I don't know, I'm not a nutritionist, you know, so if I have somebody that comes in and says, you know, well, I want to, you know, what should I be eating? You know, so you recommend stuff to them based on the percentage that we see there. Okay, so just for an example here, you can go to the Mayo Clinic. I don't know if it would work. Let's see. So if you go to the Mayo Clinic, so by the way, Mayo Clinic, very reputable source for individuals. So if you do, let's say, a 35-year-old, okay, who is 5 feet, 5 feet 10 inches. Let's say it's 175 pounds. It's a male. Okay. So here's a calorie calculator. Okay, inactive, somewhat active, active individual, or very active, right? So active include at least 30 minutes of moderate activity most days of the week, or 20 minutes of vigorous activity at least 3 days a week. Okay, so well, let's just say this individual is active. You're able to calculate somebody's calorie calculator from a reputable source, not just, well, you should be eating this much, right? So it just gives you a guidance, okay, for to be able to to know how many calories you should be eating. So you could see the range between inactive, 2,200, to about very active, 3,000 calories. So that's about an 800 calorie difference, right? So if we go back to,
So you can see that the differences there are not huge. I mean, from both extremes, yes, but in the middle area, you're talking about a couple of hundred calories a day difference. So remember, the majority of your calories, about, what do we say, about 75%, somewhere in that neck of the woods, of your calories are, not quite that much, about 65% are resting metabolic rate. Over 24 hours, you're sleeping 8 of them, or, give or take. Make sense? Right, so you're really trying to improve that resting metabolic rate, which is where exercise and proper nutrition come in.
so this is just, then you can take it further in terms of calculating your carbohydrates, your fat, and your protein. And that's what you should be, fueling your body with, right? And once you do that, then you can get to see here, this is from the United States Olympic Committee, sports dietitian. So this is like for an athlete, right? So easy training, weight management, look at the distribution of calories, where they should come from, okay? A moderate day, more carbohydrates, so more grains, right? And then a hard training day or race day, half of the plate is grains. So we've throughout the years, and I don't know if you agree with this, Ellen, but it's when you start training folks, it's more about the protein, more protein, more protein, more protein. But in reality, it's the carbohydrates that gives us that energy. Okay. And then you can obviously start going into more restrictive diets when it becomes a medical issue, right? Something that is out of your scope of practice, but that's when you have to refer to those individuals that know more in detail what, each individual should be having. Okay. Anything you want to add on this one, Ellen?
Well, only that when you're looking at these carbohydrates, what you're seeing here is these grains, these are complex carbohydrates. So fiber is key in all of those. So complex carbohydrates are those carbohydrates that contain fiber. So let's say bread, for example, right? Loaf of Wonder Bread. Anybody ever seen that? Right? Highly processed. Most of the fiber, about 70% of the fiber, has been milled out of it, versus whole wheat, a slice of whole wheat bread, multi-grain bread. So if you compare those two slices, generally what we find is that the amount of fiber in the Wonder Bread is about 1 gram of fiber. Whole wheat, about 5 or 6 grams of fiber, 1 slice of bread. So that fiber is really critical to digestive health, right? Motility, right? Food passing through you, really important on there. So, these are complex carbohydrates. This is not like a Twinkie, deep fried Twinkies. Never had one. Scares the hell out of me. But can you believe somebody would eat that? Right? Deep fried Twinkies. Deep fried Snicker bar. That I might consider.
And to Alan's point, these are nutrient dense foods, right? So we want to eat more whole foods, right? I mean, what a great name, right? In terms of putting that name on the grocery store, Whole Foods, right? You want to get closer to that source, where it's a little more. So this is just an example of what an athlete, goes through and in terms of their sample day of eating, right? And athletes, and this was more particular towards the basketball athletes, they were like, well, coach, what do I eat? How do I don't know what, I just wake up and I go. Well, you just kind of want to give them like an overview of what they should be eating. Like, hey, listen, like you need to have your proteins, you need to have your carbs, you need to have your fats, right? Okay, so I just brought it down, put it together so they can have some sort of a guidance, you know, of like, they have practice, they have school, they have, study hall, they have all, and then work and stuff. So, the main point is food is fuel, and the closer it is to that whole source, the better it is. Okay. Water, that's another huge, critical component of nutrition. I think a lot of times it gets overlooked, especially when you're on your day-to-day, life. You don't tend to. I don't like telling people or recommending you should be drinking X amount of ounces, right? Okay, and we'll go into the next slide where it should be more about like your color, right? The color of your urine, okay? Because how many times have you, personally have your drinks or your jugs, and you're drinking, or you might forget because you're busy, right? And so imagine you are aware of these things, right? But when somebody has 2 kids, they have to go to work. They work in an office where they get 2 breaks throughout their entire day. They get 1 lunch, and then they have to go to how do they know? How do they know that they actually have drank? And sometimes they don't even know what an ounce, how many liters, there are in their jug. They just go, and then sometimes forget. So a good way to tell it is, look at their pee, right? So for them to recommend to look at their pee or their urine. Check for color and quantity of their urine. If it's dark, obviously, that's and in low amount, then you need to increase that intake of water. Okay, pale yellow, your body has returned to more normal balance, right? If you're taking vitamins and supplements, okay, that is huge, because vitamins and supplements, okay, the majority of them are going to be, excreted through your urine. So it's going to be a little darker, okay? So,
Or neon colored.
or neon color, right?
Right.
And so when people or students, athletes ask me, Coach, which supplement should I be taking? What should I be, and I said, look, I can go into a little more detail about that stuff, but I say, I don't recommend it, because your majority of it, you're excreting it through your urine. So your money is going to waste, and I don't know about you, but me, I don't like wasting money, right? I don't like to spend money that is unnecessary, right? To be able to get to the goals that you want to attain, okay? By doing it with less monetary. Sweat rate, weigh yourself, wait, I put an extra T on there. Weigh yourself before and after 1 hour exercise. And so for every pound, so 16 ounces, you need to replenish about 80 to 100% of that loss while exercising. Okay, how many of you guys have done that before? Okay, weigh yourself. It's a good indicator. I mean, it tells you a lot about your sweat rate. How much should you be eating or drinking? Okay, and eating as well, because those nutrients that we talked about in the other slide, that has hydration, right? So if you're eating a salad, okay, if you're eating chicken, meats, vegetables, okay, they replenish some of that stuff, but you need to be replenishing your at the sweat rate. So that's a good indicator. Just weigh yourself before and after 1 hour exercise and see how much you lost. And then let's say if you lost 1 pound, then you need to be drinking about 16 ounces. Okay, questions on that? No?
Have any of you ever worked out? By the way, the more in shape you get, the more you sweat. Sweating is like highly tuned athletes, highly evolved athletes. Their body will start to sweat with minimal effort. And part of it is because it's so good at cooling itself that cooling ramps up at the slightest change in body temperature. They're really good. So sweating is a good thing, right? So, anybody ever taken a spin class? Right? First spin class I ever did, literally, every piece of clothing I was wearing was drenched. I mean, my socks were drenched, right? So I was like, wow, I have never sweat like that. And so, it was really kind of an interesting sort of thing. So I did a little bit, to weigh myself, and I was losing, a couple of pounds, sometimes 3. And so, just sweat, right? 1 hour class, right? So rehydrating is really important, and checking that color of your urine, that's your key.
Yeah.
That'll always tell you what your level of hydration is.
And another thing that I forgot to mention is that when you exercise, you become more conditioned, you have more muscle mass, right? Majority of your muscle is made up of water, right? So your needs, when you start exercise, when you start gaining muscle mass, your body requires or tells you, hey, drink more water, right? And some of you guys, I see like the bigger jugs, because that's what happens. Your body needs it to maintain. So like 80% of your body is water, as you can see that. Okay, protein supplements. I'll get into a little bit of that. I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen that, and we'll go. If any of you guys has a protein shake or a pre-workout that you take, let me know so we can test it in terms of like if it's something that is recommended or has been processed, through, or what it says on the label, it is what it is, right? But just the different types of proteins here. And the 2 types of proteins, obviously, is casein and whey protein. So whey protein mainly for post-workout, okay? Casein, okay, not so much. It's a slow digesting protein, okay? Whey protein is much faster, okay? They contain all essential nutrients and amino acids, sorry. And but you must get them from food, because your body does not make them, right? And then they're easily digested and absorbed. These 2 are a byproduct of cheese, and the whey protein is in a liquid state versus the casein is a solid state. So what that means is that's why the whey protein is much faster at digesting than the casein. Okay, so as you can see, some of those 2 things on the right-hand side. On your right-hand side there, whey protein, great for post-workout, great for the morning. Anabolic means building, right? So you're building some of those. Casein, great for a late snack type of deal. It's very filling. And here's where a nutrition label comes in, right? So we talked about protein, right? A lot of athletes and people in general, they say, well, how can I get a lot of protein in my diet, right? Here's an example of why, something like this, can get about 54 grams of high quality protein. So what was your intake of protein on 0.8?
0.8 was 76.
And then on the high end?
It was like 190.
190. So let's say you were, take you as an example, you were to take one of these. You already pretty much covered a quarter of your protein intake for the day. Let's say you take 2 of these, plus your food. What's happening to the rest of that protein? Storage, right? Okay, or it gets excreted. Okay, so when you think about it, do you really need a lot of supplementation? No, right? No, so you don't need a lot of supplementation. It's there to assist. However, I would say this, okay? I would always tell, and I still tell athletes, do you feel like that helps you? Psychologically, taking a protein shake or a pre-workout, does that help you? Do you feel like it helps you? Yes, coach. Okay, Okay, look at the health benefits, pros and the cons, right? If you feel like it helps you, right, I'm not gonna tell you, stop doing it. Okay, because at the end of the day, I can tell you, and you can turn around and do it yourself, right? And there's a lot of times you're gonna encounter that in your careers, where you tell somebody don't do it, and they're still gonna do it. Or vice versa. They'll listen to you, they'll be like, okay, well, my trainer said no. I should stay away from this, right? So, but lastly, it's this NSF, and we'll talk about it. So that's why I said, bring in, if somebody takes a protein supplement, a pre-workout and stuff, there's ways to knowing, are these ingredients really in this protein shake? Have they been vetted by a third party? Okay, or is it just because it has happened, and it does happen, where people just buy stuff and sell stuff, and they tell you, yeah, this says that it has 54 grams of protein, and it doesn't have protein. It has some rat poisoning chemical, and that is true because none of these are regulated by the FDA. So anyway, with that said,
So yes, so your homework is to bring in a supplement, right? Supplement that you either use or maybe somebody uses or something. Just bring it in, or just bring the name of it in. Take a picture of it, and we'll show you how you can vet these things. How you can look to see, is this something that really you want to be doing? Okay. So we're going to do that on Tuesday. We're also going to look at some weight management, because you're going to have a lot of clients that want to lose weight. And how do we help them lose fat? The other thing I want you to do, look this up. It's called CalFresh. CalFresh. Anybody ever heard of this? Yeah, look up CalFresh. Driving in today, new study that just came out that said that 6% of, which means it's low. In other words, we know that there are more people who qualify for CalFresh. Fresh fruits and vegetables, food, right? We have so many students that are food insecure, people who are food insecure. So all this stuff is great, but you're gonna have clients who aren't eating and could eat more nutritiously because this program helps them. Right? So check it out, and we'll talk a little bit about that on Tuesday. On that note, make sure everybody gets some kind of an acknowledgement on a job well done. Okay, enjoy